in the recordings for the other actors who come in after us. They're expecting the correct line, and instead they get some joke line. So we try to work really fast so that then we can go back and leave bombs for everybody. Too many to recall, though. Sorry about that. Oh, back here.
What was it like voicing Winry?
So special. I love playing Winry. You may not realize this because some of you could have just discovered Full Metal Alchemist yesterday. But when we first worked on it, it was 2004. Some of you maybe weren't born. Most of the time when we play a character nowadays, we're in a show for 12 episodes. Most shows are only 12 episodes. If we're lucky, we get 24 episodes. Very few shows are long-running things like Naruto or Bleach or One Piece, Dragon Ball, Inuyasha. You can kind of name those on two hands. But so it's very special to think that I played Winry for six or 8 years. We started in 2004. We did the first show, had a few years off. We did Brotherhood. In between those, there was a movie. Then we did another movie. So I think the last thing that I recorded for Winry was in 2011. I didn't play her every day for those years, but I feel that of all my characters, I've spent the most time with her, and I know her the most. So because of that, she's very special, and I don't have to think very hard to get into her headspace or to make the voice come out. So.
Hey Caitlin, I know I've already asked you a question about how when you react to Tony Stark's armor, but there's this other question I'd like to ask you is, I've heard that you cosplayed as Wonder Woman some time ago, and it got me thinking, what would it like for you to play Wonder Woman?
I would love to play Wonder Woman. I didn't just cosplay as her, I had a job as Wonder Woman. So it wasn't it's one thing to come to a convention in a costume that you made or you purchased, whatever. But I worked for a theme park in the States called Six Flags. And the first of these is in Texas where I live, Six Flags over Texas. And they decided one year to go from just having costume characters like Bugs Bunny and Tweety Bird to having face characters, and it was the Justice League. So I auditioned and was cast as Wonder Woman. So for one summer in 2006, I wore a star-spangled bathing suit in the 100-degree heat. That's our degrees, not y'all's degrees. Anyway, so yeah, there are pictures on the internet. They exist. I think somewhere buried in my Instagram, you can find a picture of me as Wonder Woman. Because of that, I've always wanted to voice act for Wonder Woman, but most games or cartoons with her as a character, they're made out in Los Angeles. And I don't live in Los Angeles, so while I work out there on occasion, big things with Wonder Woman, DC and Marvel superheroes, those are going to be what's called union games, and I'm not in the Actors Union. In Texas, I don't have to be. So my situation would have to be different to ever have the opportunity to play Wonder Woman, but I would do it in a heartbeat.
I'll love to see that. I'll love to see that.
Thank you. Oh, back here.
Hey,
Hi.
I just wanted to do you have any inspirations for you to become a voice actor? Who were your inspirations from your time?
I never set out to become a voice actor, which I know a lot of young people nowadays, they do that. Maybe they enter the world of acting because they want to specifically focus on voiceover and voice acting. But that was never my intention. It was just something that happened. Growing up, I adored watching cartoons and Disney movies, and I still do. In fact, I prefer animated content to anything else. So when the opportunity arose to go and visit Funimation, and then that turned into an audition, I took the opportunity. So I can't say that any one voice actor inspired me to go and do it. You know, I mentioned some of my favorites from shows that I watched growing up, but I never watched them and went, I'm going to do that for a living. So I feel very blessed that this has ended up my career.
Hi there.
Hi.
If you could voice one character from any animated series that you haven't voiced yourself, who would it be and why?
I think we answered it. It'd be Wonder Woman. Yeah. Because she's awesome.
How about anyone other than Wonder Woman?
Anyone other than Wonder Woman? I'm making a horrible face. Gosh. I'm sorry that I'm spacing out. I don't know. Who do you want to hear me be?
I got one.
Oh, who's that?
Pepper Potts.
Pepper Potts? Okay. Sure. Yeah, Tony Stark's gal. Yeah, I like her. There we go. Yeah, I like it. Good answer. Good answer. In the back. Yes.
Hi. Out of all of the serifs in Tales of Zestiria, which do you prefer?
Is Dezel one of them? Yeah, I'm sorry. Sometimes I lose track of the terminology of a show, but yeah, Dezel, because of just the relationship that he and Rose have, is pretty special, very special.
When you're going to voice a new character in anime, do you watch the Japanese version first, or do you just go straight for it?
We always watch the Japanese first. That's part of the process, because it's very important to us to capture the intention of the original product. So that's part of. I can't imagine doing it without watching the Japanese. Now, we don't have to go home and watch a whole episode before we come in to record, but while we are on the job, we will be watching it simultaneously. So you look at the cue you're about to do, and you get to see your words in English on one screen and the video on the other, and you'll listen to it in Japanese, and you're watching for what their mouth is doing and when they're pausing and stuff, so you know when to talk, and that's your chance to hear it in Japanese, and then it's your turn. But yes, the Japanese performance definitely informs my performance.
Just as a heads up to everyone, I am keeping an eye on everyone who's got their hand up. I'm just trying to be fair when picking everyone out, okay? So do keep your hand up when I'm running about.
Hi. Oh, hi. This is an odd one, but did you enjoy the stupidity that was freezing when you played Satellizer? Because I know that's one of the stupidest shows.
I've never heard it referred to as stupid before, because it seems ridiculous.
It makes fun of itself in the way it is. So I just thought it would be a fun show to voice act.
I guess I haven't watched it straight through to notice that it makes fun of itself. So playing Satellizer was just it was such a strange experience. And it is odd to me, but a lot of people really relate to her and like her, and I get just as many female fans as male fans for that show, and I always ask, like, why do you like this? Because I look at it and on the surface it seems so dehumanizing, but fans tell me they like Satellizer because she had such horrible experiences in life, but she rose above it, and that she wins in the end. So I try to keep that in mind and not be too judgmental. But it was strangely fun, but at the same time, I'm like, somebody drew this, someone made this. That is 23 drawings per second to make this show. Oh my gosh. Anyway, okay. Yes.
Quick question before I ask your main one, because it kind of hinges on it. Were you in Pokemon?
Yes.
If there's any character in Pokemon you'd like to voice, like of any of the main casts.
Oh, that isn't my character, but I like my character. I'm Deoncy in Pokemon, so you get to hear her in a movie. And otherwise, she isn't in the show, and in the game, she doesn't. They make computerized sounds. But I really like her, and because it was the movie, she's telepathic or whatever. She gets to talk a lot with the human characters, and I think she's really special. Princess set out to save her kingdom, and she's got a good story. So I picked my own character. Deonce, I choose you.
If you could be any character apart from Harry or in High School Host Club, who would you be?
I would like to be Renge in Oron because she's crazy. She's the most opposite of Haruhi that I can think of. She's bonkers, and that would be so fun. What? He ran away. The mic ran out.
Don't worry, I've not gone that far.
Of juice. Oh, he's up there. Okay.
What is your first impression playing Maki from Love Live?
My first impression of her, I thought that she was snobby. Not that she was a snob. My experience with Love Live began as a writer before I was cast in the show. So they had hired me to do the adaptive script writing. And then once I had turned in, 3 or 4 scripts, they asked me to audition. And they chose the characters that I would audition for, which is different from my normal experience. Usually at Funimation, you as an actor get to decide which characters you would like to read for. There's a book full of all the characters in the show, and you have 20 minutes to do 3. So you go, I'm good at this type of voice and this type, and I'd like to try that. But in this case, the studio, not Funimation, it was Bang Zoom out in Los Angeles, they asked me to read for a handful of characters, Maki, Honoka, Ellie, and maybe Umi or something. I don't remember. And while doing the audition, I liked reading for Maki the most, which surprised me because writing for her, I'm like, I don't know about this girl, but I really connected with her on the audition, so I'm so glad that that's who I got to play.
What was your experience like with voicing Phoebe in One Piece? Given that before the actual series was redubbed, you played her in the movie.
In the movie, sure.
Which meant you had to go through her role twice.
Yes, right. I actually played Vivi before the movie because we did a video game for the Nintendo Wii, and they had to pre-cast many of the show's characters because they were in the game.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So that was my first experience as Vivi, but in the game, it might be her Miss Wednesday persona. At least the costume is. I don't remember. But I was really excited after the game to know I get to be this person eventually. And then we did the movie, and I also helped direct the movie. So I was excited even then to know I get to continue playing her, and it'll be a more drawn-out experience because the movie is, truncated to get through the plot faster. And she's one of my favorites. Yeah. Thank you. Where'd he go? Oh, hi.
Hi. Is your voice work majorly influenced by the Japanese version of the show? Do you choose what voice to use?
Oh, you mean like when we develop a voice?
Yeah.
I'd say if I could give it a percentage, it's probably like 70-30 in favor of trying to be like the Japanese. The difference is that their culture have different, what I like to call vocal stereotypes. There's a character type and then a voice that culture expects to hear coming out of a character that is small and cute, or super sexy, or bookish, or shy. And oftentimes those voices, especially if it's a group of, say, schoolgirls or something, they could all have different personality types, but all of the pitches could live in the same place. So if we did that in English, it would just sound like a bunch of high-pitched voices, and you can't really tell the personalities through them. So we mix it up a bit more and think more about real people and what they sound like if they are that personality. So we're informed by the Japanese performance, but ultimately we're not just putting something into the English language so you can hear it in English, but so that you can experience it from an English-speaking culture. Granted, it's an American one most of the time, but I think you guys understand. Yeah. Oh, that's fine. Yes.
Out of Love Live, who would you like to be?
Out of who? Oh, say that one more time.
Out of Love Live, who would you like the voice?
Well, I am Maki. I don't know if you knew that. So I am Maki in Love Live. If I had to choose someone else, it would probably be Honoka, because I really love her. I love her spunk and I love her leadership, and she's special. Where are we headed? Back here.
Oh. Great. Well, quickly, you were in Negima, right?
Yes.
What was it like working with such a huge cast?
Well,
Sorry,
I got super loud. The cool thing about being in that is that back in those days, 2006 or whenever we made that show, there weren't quite as many voice actors working. So to a director tasked with casting an entire classroom full of girls, some 30-something people, that meant that we got to double up and play multiple characters. So for me, I think I played 2 characters, but I did about 4 voices. So I played a Brit. I'm Chachimaru, who's a robot android with a British accent. And she also has like a normal like RP sort of posh accent. And then she has a little counterpart prototype named Cha-Cha Zero that was like a little Cockney thing. And, and then I play another character named Chisame. And Chisame is a secret cosplayer. So in school, she acts like she hates everyone, and then she goes home and she dresses up in costumes and takes pictures of herself and puts them on the internet. So her internet persona named Chiyu had yet another voice. So it was really fun being in that show because I got to do about 4 voices for one show, and that's what I remember the most about it. Yes.
Hi. What was your favorite thing about playing Hitomi in Escafani?
Oh my gosh. My favorite thing, it sounds cheesy because it doesn't really have anything to do with the story and all that, which was great. But it meant a lot to me to know a couple of things. That I was chosen for the role without auditioning. That hadn't really happened to me before. So I felt very honored to be a part of such an important redub of a really nostalgic show for people. So I was excited and nervous about that. And then I mentioned earlier that I'd love to meet Maya Sakamoto someday, and Hitomi in Escaflowne was her breakout role. That's what brought her into voice acting back in the late 90s. So having played her as Haruhi, which some might say could be like my breakout role, I guess, apart from Winry, it meant a lot to get to go back in time, as it were, and play another Sakamoto character.
Hi, out of all the characters that you played, are there any that you wish got more development than what they have done already?
Characters with more development. That I wish had more development. Right now, I would love some more development from Mina Ashido in My Hero. Yeah, she's obviously popular. I see multiple people cosplaying her, and I have so much fun playing her. But right now, she just kind of looks like eye candy. Like, we need some more pink in the show, you know? So that's why she's there. So there's got to be a reason that she exists. The story is so good and so well thought out. So I'm just waiting for that moment where you get to find out what is her deal. Just give me just one episode, please. Yes.
Hello. So you've been in the voice acting in the anime sort of westernizing industry for quite a few years now, and I'm just wondering if you've noticed any big changes since the early days compared to now, whether that's towards attitudes towards voice actors or anything really.
I think the biggest change is in the volume of series that we're putting out now because of demand. It used to be we would get a show many years after it had already been completed in Japan, and then we get to make the whole thing and put it out for you. It still used to be a volume at a time, and then we changed to the entire series because that's how people were buying shows, you know, buying whole seasons of television shows. That was a thing. So we started doing that with anime. And then Apple came along and, well, they've always been around, but like iTunes and putting episodes of TV shows up. So we realized, oh, we have to make things streaming. Then we had to combat piracy a lot more. So fans want what they want as soon as possible. So that's when what Funimation calls simuldubs came along. I don't know how it translates here. I think they have Funimation now for the UK. Is the time different?
Sometimes it's a little bit later.
Mostly it's in that 2 to 4 week range. Yeah, so it airs in Japan, 2 to 4 weeks later you get it in English on a broadcast schedule. That sounds like, well, duh, of course. It's been so hard. Now it's a well-oiled machine. We can do it, we've got it figured out. But to think that we're producing 18 shows every 3 months on that schedule blows my mind. Each director, I'm one, handles 2 shows at a time. In addition to our old shows from last season or the season before, because they come back around for home video. So we're having to re-review them or add the music in English, or it's a lot more labor intensive than it used to be. So I think that's the biggest change.
Hello. What was the hardest line you had to record or recording session you had to do?
The hardest? Ooh, I must have blocked it out because I hate the hard ones. Okay, I can remember. There's a show called Last Exile Fam the Silver Wing. Has anybody seen that show? Cool, okay. It's a good one. Last Exile was the original show, and then Fam the Silver Wing is the sequel show. And in it, the characters are from regions, but they don't call it England or Russia or something. It has some other type of name, but it's supposed to be symbolic of a real country. And there are some Russian characters, and like a whole fleet of them, in fact. And there's a commander and her right-hand person. And the commander character speaks only Russian. Even in the Japanese. It's a Japanese actress speaking Russian, or phonetically pronouncing Russian, perhaps. And I was cast as that one. I don't speak Russian, but the director thought that I'm a hard worker. Like, you can do this, Caitlin. Like, I don't know. We had, normally when we record, there's a director and an engineer and an actor, and that's it, 3 people. For this project, we had to bring in a Russian coach, and what was her name? She was terrifying. She was beautiful, but like in that terrifying, like Russian way. It was amazing. I mean that in the best, that's a compliment. She was tall and blonde and stern and intense, and she was a professional piano player, and oh man. And so she was just there to tell me how to say things in Russian, and to tell me how bad I was at saying them. And it was just crushing. It was so hard. They have sounds that we don't make in English, and it was the worst. And I was recording at maybe a quarter of the speed that I normally record at. We should do about 30 lines in an hour, and I was maybe getting through 5. And she's a main character. Eventually the director realized, we can't do this or we won't get the show completed. But this character must speak Russian because she speaks Russian in the Japanese. So instead, I think her name's Tatiana, she stepped in and she played that character because she speaks Russian. Duh, they should have done that from the beginning. But I mean, I was crying. I was so frustrated with myself. Like, why can't I get this? Just listen to the sound and repeat it. I couldn't do it. I'm still in the show. Instead, I play her right-hand person who occasionally speaks Russian, but most of the time speaks English with a Russian accent. So, there we go. And then Tatiana became my inspiration for Lilia Baranovskaya, who is in Yuri on Ice. She's Yurio's ballet teacher. And all I had to do is imagine Tatiana, and the voice came out. Good question, thank you.
I'm sorry to interrupt the panel, but I need to make a very quick announcement. To anyone who's lost a mobile phone, please go to the front desk on the ground floor. They have it. I'll repeat again. If you've lost a phone, to the front desk at reception, okay? So just go back to that. Now, on with the panel.
On with the panel.
So, do you prefer being typecast, or do you prefer trying different characters and different roles?
What's nice about typecasting is that it means you're working. So I have nothing against it. And if people imagine a certain character type and I'm the first one that comes to mind for that voice, great. Hopefully that means they will cast me. Sometimes they may not cast me because of that. Like, oh, it's this type of character. Everyone's expecting Caitlin, so let's not do that. But otherwise, I don't mind it. I think now, because I've been doing this long enough, I've had opportunities to show a wide range of what I can do, which now people know I can do all of those things. And then if they see the range, they go, I wonder if she could also do fill in the blank. So I think I still get a lot of chances to do many things. As it is now, I'd say I'm cast as strong leader types, and so the VVs of the world and student body president type people. What else? Anyone with a dialect, they just go, here Caitlin, learn this dialect. Okay. That's mainly what I do. Yes?
If you could have any type of magic from fairy tale, what would you have and why?
Oh, just magic, just flying. I just want to be able to fly. Flying magic. That's what I would like. Who else? Who else? We're looking around for questions.
Tell you what, there's one on the side there. We'll be biased. Hello!
So, from Butler Academia, from all the characters there, is there anybody that you ship?
Do I ship anyone? Thinking. I'll be honest and say that I haven't had the opportunity to see much of the show. As I mentioned, we work a lot, so I have time to watch the shows that I'm in charge of, not as much the shows that I'm in. Oh gosh, I feel like I know this answer. What are some popular ships in the show? Maybe I just can't think of names. You could just shout them out.
Jojo X, Rex Sugar.
Oh no, we're talking about My Hero.
Oh, sorry.
Anybody who watches My Hero. What's that?
Ochiko and Fruppy.
Ochiko and Froppy. Oh, okay, that's one. Of course, there's the Deku and Bakugo. That's a thing. I will say that when I cast the new Cardcaptor Sakura Clear card, which I directed, I knew that there's this Deku and Bakugo thing, so I cast their voice actors as the two characters that are together in Cardcaptor, as Toya and Yukito, because of that.
Hi.
Hi, where are you? Hi.
Yeah. So I know that you loved Oron before you got to direct it, and then obviously you got to direct it.
Yay!
So I was wondering, like, if you had an idea, like, who you wanted to cast as the characters before you actually got to do it.
I made a short list before auditions, so I got to have auditions, and my short list was just to make sure that I heard particular actors in certain roles. Because as I mentioned before, they could come in and choose who they wanted to read for, and what if they didn't choose the character I wanted to hear them as? So I had a short list. From that short list, I don't know that too many people actually ended up being the roles that I thought. I knew that Vic already really, really loved Tamaki, because a mutual friend of ours showed him the show, and he did what every voice actor should never do, and that's fall in love with the show and a character before you know if you will ever get to work on it. So I knew that he loved Tamaki, and I knew that I would read him for Tamaki, and thankfully he was the best one for the job, so he got the part. But other characters, like Greg and Todd as the twins, that was not on my radar at all. I didn't know what I was going to do. I knew it needed to be two voice actors because the Japanese use two voice actors, but I couldn't think of two people that sounded enough alike. And Greg and Todd really have two very different voices, but the quirkiness about them made it believable that they could be brothers. I don't know. They play the same type of roles, so that's how that happened. If you can believe this, J. Michael Tatum was not originally cast as Kyoya.
It was Troy Baker.
What? It was Troy Baker. It was Troy Baker. He was magnificent, but Michael owned that role, and Kyoya is my favorite character in the show. But originally it was Troy, and Troy just got too busy. It was around the time that he moved to California, and it was just impossible. So Michael it was, and Michael it forever shall be.
Funny enough though, Troy's coming to Manchester next month.
Oh, that's great. Trying to think of other characters that I thought might be somebody else. I mean, I did not originally. My short list for that was pretty much any female actress that you can think of that is good at that type of male voice. But I ended up using them elsewhere in the show for other things, and in parts where they were less interchangeable. You know, Brina as Hiro, the little 5th grader guy. I can't imagine anybody else being that snarky and adorable. So that had to be her, and that's, yeah, man. 10 years ago we did that show. 10 years ago. Crazy. Question. Hi.
What's the hardest part of directing?
Oh. The hardest part of directing is time. There's not enough time you have to make it as good as it can possibly be in the time that you have, and that's all the time that you have, because of the demand right now in the industry to get stuff as soon as possible. So, and even if it isn't demand for last week's episode right now, it could just have more to do with we need to get this group of things out in time before some other related thing happens to encourage people to actually buy the thing instead of downloading the thing illegally. So that's I just want to have more time. That's all.
Hello.
Oh, what? Hi.
You voiced Mathilda in Fire Emblem, right?
Yes.
Was that a good experience?
It was a wonderful experience. That is the second time where I was requested for a part. I worked with Nintendo previously on Xenoblade Chronicles DX for the Wii U, and it was from that experience that they called the same studio where we recorded and said we'd like Caitlin to play this part in particular. So that was very special, and she was neat. What's interesting about playing her, around that same time, I had just finished dubbing Skip Beat, which was an older show from 2008, but didn't get a dub until it got kickstarted, and in 2016, we dubbed it. And Grant George plays Clive in Fire Emblem, so he and Matilda are, you know, they love each other, and their love is strong, and they will fight to the death and all of that. But in Skip Beat, he plays my ex-boyfriend, who is horrible to my character, and she goes through the whole show just trying to get revenge on him. So it was a big switch to have to hear his voice in the headphones and be like, no, I love this person. That's real acting.
Hi.
Hi.
Out of all the characters you voiced, who's your favourite?
It's hard to say a character that's my favorite. I mentioned that I love playing Haruhi probably the most because she is such a different type of character than any other character. But I don't know that she is my favorite character. They're all like your children when you give voices to them and spend time bringing them to life. But I do like Haruhi a lot. So. Don't we all? What we got?
Sorry, I was going to ask questions.
That's okay.
You mentioned you've done some writing as well as directing, yeah? Similar question to before. What's the biggest challenge to writing sort of English script of an anime dub? Adapting it from the Japanese?
Right, that is a loaded question. There are a number of difficulties, a number of challenges. Obviously, when the Japanese version make reference to or utilize wordplay and puns. The Japanese love puns and jokes based around words. So the pun itself will not translate because puns are about the way words sound, and our version of that word, it just doesn't work. So getting jokes to work, I think we figured it out now. So basically, if they use a pun in Japanese, we need to use a pun also, but it doesn't need to be the same pun. It, in fact, cannot be. So we have to somehow do it. That's one. Another thing that they love to do in anime is suddenly speak English in the Japanese. So having to make that work, whether it is just a moment or something that's really important to a character and ends up being throughout an entire show, we have to find ways to do it. If it's using a dialect, if it's using a different language even. I know in Love Live, in the movie of Love Live, they go to New York. And so what they did was, of course, the girls, they're all speaking English, but really it's Japanese. And when you watch it in the Japanese, all of the Americans they encounter are actual Americans. They really got like expats or something in Japan to come in the movie and speak English. And I'm like, gosh, that is awesome. I wish we could do that too. So we did two things. We had the Americans speaking with New York accents, so it was pretty thick, or using words that would not be commonly learned in a Japanese English class. For example, the girls are going to have a concert, which they call a live, but they're talking to some Americans in the park, and those girls call it a gig. And the Love Live girls, they don't know what that is. So things like that we got to do. There's so many tricks to it. Obviously, timing. The Japanese they're not as strict about the voice you hear matching the mouth movement, and we absolutely are. There's just something about our brains that if what you're hearing doesn't match what the mouth is doing, you will immediately assume that the quality is bad. But it could be the best actors ever giving voice to those people, but if it doesn't match this, you don't care anymore. So getting that timing down is really important. Dealing with jokes and dealing with use of English or any other language. Those are, for me, the hardest challenges. Great question, thank you. Yes?
Hi.
Hi.
So, is there anything new that's coming out lately that you're able to tell us about, like a second season of Absolute Duo or something?
Oh, I'm a Brit in that one too. I don't know anything about more Absolute Duo, but that show was really silly and fun to work on. So if there was more, I would gladly do that. What I've been working on, I mentioned Cardcaptor Sakura Clear Card. That just ended. Right, I think the last episode will air while I'm here, so hooray. The other thing that's been occupying my time is Free. You guys know the franchise Free, the swimming show? Yay! I don't know when the movies will make it over here, but there are 4 movies, and I just directed all 4 of them in about 2 months. So it was wonderful, and I loved it, and I love all my swim boys. And I hope that you will watch it and get the opportunity to watch it. It's some good stuff. Good stuff. Yes?
Hi, in Oran High School Host Club, which 2 characters do you ship the most?
Which 2 characters I ship most? I personally love the idea of Haruhi and Kyoya. Love it. Though it's hard for me to like fully ship it simply because I don't feel that Oran is a show about that. But I guess that's what shipping is. You get to do it whether the show is about people being in relationships or not. I've read the manga though, and it just leads you to be more Haruhi and Tamaki, and that's fine too. But I really love Kyoya. He's my favorite. So. In the back.
Here's a question. What's the most unique or challenging role you've had to play?
Well, unique is definitely Haruhi, as mentioned. Challenging was also Haruhi, because at the time that I began Oran, I'd never played a character like her vocally before. I'd never, if I'd played a male role, it was usually a small boy and it was 1 or 2 lines. The kid didn't even have a name. So to play someone that has to be androgynous enough to be mistaken for a boy was new to me. On my side was the fact that she's still young. She's only about 14. And my engineer, sound engineer at the time, had lived in Japan and spoke Japanese. So he's like, Haruhi doesn't sound like a boy in the Japanese, but she talks like one. So it was more of an attitude. So I just remembered to have what I considered to be like a young male attitude. I thought back to my friends when I was 14 and all my guy friends at that age, and that's what I'm trying to present. So if she sounds a little bit like she's from California, like she's a surfer or something, that's what happened. that's where I grew up, so sorry.
In Uron High School Host Club, what is your opinion on Tamaki x Kyoya?
I think that they're best friends, but I don't really think that they're into each other that way. Tamaki is too into Haruhi, though he doesn't realize that that's what it is. If you ask Michael Tatum, he would say that he feels Kyoya is probably really into Tamaki, but I don't get that out of it. Tamaki's too much a Haruki person. Where'd you go?
Hello.
Oh, there you are.
I found a hand that's been hidden behind a pillar.
Oh, sorry.
Who's your favourite character from Black Butler?
My favorite character from Black Butler, he's awful and horrible, but I sure love Alois Trancy. He's wretched, isn't he? We're like, why do you like him so much? Because Lucy Christian's performance as him is stellar. She just blew my mind. She's so good. And I think I also auditioned for Alois and really liked it. You got some really juicy things that you get to do as an actor playing him. So because of that, I really like his character. I'm sorry that he's horrible.
What is your workspace like as a voice actress and also as a director?
That's so fun. What's your workspace like? So at Funimation, I'll tell you a story. We used to work out of a bank building with some offices upstairs. So the studios were just imagine like a regular office, right? From the edge of the stage to the wall over there, not terribly big, with a thing called a whisper room in it, which is a portable recording studio. And it's about the size of a phone booth, maybe a little bit bigger. So a few years later, we moved into our own building, and they built a row of, I guess, built-in studios, more traditional studios. You come into a room, and this is the control area, director, engineer, and then in that room is another room with a proper door and a window, and that's where the actor is. But they only built 5 of those, and as I mentioned, we put out 18 simuldubs a season, and there are 9 staff directors. So we still use the whisper booths in the offices around the perimeter of the building. So I'm in one of those because my room has a window. Every time a director leaves, they come and they say, Caitlin, do you want one of the permanent rooms? I say, no, because I have a window. Those guys are stuck in a hole all day with no sunlight or anything. So my room is covered in fan art and toys and figures and plushies and just there's stuff everywhere. I'm gonna have to take some stuff out because I'm noticing that people keep bumping into tables and things fall off the wall and step on my stuff, so I don't want that. But one side of the whisper booth is covered in fan art that folks give me, and I try to change it out. So it's like a refrigerator with your kids' art, but instead it's all fan art. That's the first thing you see when you come in the door. And then plushies are all on top of it, staring down at me while I work. The acoustic paneling on the wall is where I've put pins into maybe more art that I buy from artist alleys and kind of organized in sections. There's a Full Metal part, there's an Oron section. Stuff that I direct obviously gets its own area, so there's a card captor, there's an origami section. I'm running out of room. I don't know what I'm gonna do. So it's just covered in stuff. There's Show by Rock, there's rubber straps and a big garland just hanging everywhere. It's nutty. I don't know what I would do if I didn't have a Funimation studio. Where would I put all of that stuff? I have no clue.
So obviously Owen was really popular and it has a manga that goes all the way to Haruhi and Tamaki getting married. Unfortunately, the anime talks halfway through that.
Yeah.
There's been a big uproar of fans that want a second season.
Right.
How do you feel? Would you be would you want a second season, or are you okay the way it's ended?
I only get tired of the question because I get it so often, but I love Oron and would jump at the chance to do it again. Absolutely, in a heartbeat. There's so many other fun characters and adventures that they go on in the manga, and I would love to see those things play out. I think the only reason they didn't make more is at the time that the show was made in Japan, the manga had not progressed far enough. So I think the anime is a great standalone anime, the way they left it kind of open-ended, leaves it to where maybe one of these days they make some more. But I think Studio Bones is pretty busy right now making My Hero Academia and other things. And I also wonder, perhaps Oron isn't as popular in Japan anymore as it is here and in the States, just in the general Western anime community. It's a show that people don't realize it's been around for 10 years. A lot of folks use it to introduce people to anime. So many people say, this is my first anime, and that could have been 10 years ago, or 2 years ago, or 2 months ago. So to us, it's still fresh and new and relevant, but I think in Japan they may have moved on from it, which is why there hasn't been any more. So, but I would do it, absolutely.
We're running over very gently, but this will be the very, very
Okay,
last thing.
last one.
This question is a bit
I'm
too shy for the
long-winded,
microphone.
I'm sorry,
again.
you guys.
So, what is your favourite Winry quote, and can you say it like Winry?
I can. It's a family con, but my favorite Winry line is, Edward, if you lose, I'm going to kick your ass! I'm sorry if that was inappropriate. But it's my favorite line! It's my favorite line! Oh, I'm sorry. That's okay.
I will give an exception this one time. We've had guests say worse. No one remember it.
Okay.
So, can I have a massive round of applause for Caitlin Glass, please?
It's all good. I will be signing again at 4:30. So I can meet you over at the signing area, but as for right now, I need to take a break. So I will catch you all later on. Thank you.